Now let's meet the candidates for House District 20. They are Republican Mia Costello and Democrat Michelle Scannell. We'll start with Mia Costello. 1 minute opening statement, please.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Mia Costello, and I am running for State House in District 20. I'm a lifelong Alaskan, and I've spent 44 years as an Alaska resident. While I've served 2 years in the legislature, I focused on economic development, and I passed House Bill 252, which makes Alaska the most competitive state in the country for certain kinds of fast-growing businesses. I've also focused on making government more efficient, and I've led an effort as the chair of the DNR subcommittee to make the 2,500 backlog of permits in Alaska be reduced, and we're making progress in that area, and I'm proud to have been a leader in that regard. I'm also a wife and a mother. My husband is a lifelong Alaskan, and we're raising 2 beautiful boys who are enrolled in the public schools here in Anchorage. My website is votemia.com, and I welcome any questions at 227-5276. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Michelle Scannell.
Yes. Hi, my name is Michelle Scannell, and I'm running for State House. I've been involved in public service my entire life, working in the legislature in both Texas and Alaska. During my time in Juneau, I was content to work out of the spotlight and focus on the issues that were important to Alaska. But I began to see evidence of fiscal irresponsibility that I could no longer ignore. A prime example of this was my opponent, Representative Costello's yes vote for HB 110, a $20 billion giveaway to the oil and gas industry, which came without any corresponding oversight or accountability. In a time where a lot of Alaskans are hurting, we must make management of Alaska's fiscal and financial resources our top priority. I can't stand by and watch my opponent fail to manage Alaska's economic future. My husband served our nation in uniform, and now I feel called to serve my friends and neighbors down in Juneau. I'll bring real fiscal responsibility to Juneau.
We'll have to leave it right there, unfortunately. Okay.
Thank you.
Let's go to our reporters' questions, starting with Daisha Eaton. Your first question for Ms. Costello.
Ms. Costello, what's the most important thing that you learned during your term in Juneau, and if you're reelected, what will you do differently if you go back?
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the question, Daisha. I appreciate it. I have a lot of experience working in Juneau. Prior to being elected, I worked for Representative Norm Rokeberg, who represented the district in the legislature. And when I was elected, I called Norm and I said, Norm, what advice do you have for me? And he said, listen to everyone and treat everyone equally. And I think that's the reason why House Bill 252 received so much overwhelming support. I met individually with every legislator, asked for their support, asked if they had any questions. This bill is unique in the United States. It makes Alaska the most competitive state in the country for certain types of fast-growing businesses. And I had over 20 co-sponsors. And I think that working across the aisle, working with everyone and listening is certainly a priority for me.
Okay, Michelle Scannell, 30 seconds.
Well, I will bring to Juneau my ability to work positively and correctly across the aisle. But one of the things that my opponent mentioned was her House Bill 252. What I've done is I've looked into this, and the fact of the matter is there's only one company that has benefited from this bill. It's a company called Simply Social. And in all intents and purposes, it's a paper company that exists and only employs people over in Romania, and Alaska has not received any revenue, and Alaskan has not received any Alaskan jobs as well.
Okay, we better leave it there. Let's go to Grace Jang.
This question is for Ms. Scannell. You say that our freedoms are being chipped away and eroded. What do you mean by that?
Well, I was referring to my work as a nationally recognized privacy defender. It was shortly after 9/11 when I saw that the federal government was wanting to start monitoring the movements of American citizens within our own country. And I thought, that's not right. We have a right to be left alone and our rights to privacy. So I began to fight to prevent that. I also prevented the national ID card from coming into fruition, and I also fought to prevent a lot of the policies that TSA was wanting to implement to egregiously affect American citizens' ability to travel.
Mia Costello, 30 seconds.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Ms. Scannell had said that our freedoms are being chipped away and eroded, and I wanted to know what she meant by that.
Well, I think that we all bring a history to the job, and I'm proud to say that what I bring to the job is a respect for privacy. I bring a sense of honesty and decency, and I will work with anyone to further our economy in Alaska, and I'm proud of the work that I've done. Thank you.
Okay, let's go back to Daisha Eaton.
This is a question for Ms. Scannell. In your statement, you say that you will not allow the PFD to be taken away in order to pay for billion-dollar tax giveaways to the oil industry. What do you mean exactly by that?
Well, when we're talking about HB 110, which is the $20 billion giveaway that my opponent voted for, that was going to leave us with massive shortfalls in our budget that was going to have to be made up by a lot of different avenues, and a lot of people have been saying that one of the ways that we would have to do, one of the revenues that we'd have to look at was our PFD and taking that away. And I don't think that's right. Many Alaskans, including people that I have spoken to in my own district, depend on the permanent fund check that they receive every fall to get through the year.
Mia Costello, 30 seconds.
Thank you. Despite what my opponent says, I'm for protecting the permanent fund dividend, and the permanent fund is strengthened by the resource development that we do in Alaska. The royalties go directly into the fund, and that is why I'm proud to have been working on permitting reform so that we can have more development and responsible development in Alaska. I believe that we need to think long-term in terms of our fiscal policy, and that is why I am voting for throughput in the pipeline, because it funds the majority of the services that Alaskans rely on a day-to-day basis.
Grace Jang, your next question.
This question is for Ms. Costello. You say that you're going to work harder for development, and to be honest, we've heard almost every candidate this election season say that. Exactly what do you mean by that, and how will you do that?
Okay, thank you for the question. When I was elected, I received a lot of emails from constituents and people who had concerns that they wanted to share with me. And one man in particular, his email resonated. He said he's grown old waiting for the state to provide him with permits for his business. And we hear this story over and over again. I think that what we've done through my leadership and also with the support of the governor is we've brought the permitting in the Department of Natural Resources to the 21st century. We want people to be able to look online to find out who has their permit at the moment, which department has it been sent to. There's a bureaucracy and a permitting process that needs to be gone through for each project, and Alaskans deserve to know how long it's going to take and where that permit is at the moment. I think what we're doing really is bringing a business-friendly environment to bureaucracy, which we know hasn't always been the case. So I was proud to be a leader in that regard.
Michelle Scannell.
Well, I think that development in Alaska is definitely important, but we also have to make sure that when we talk about development in Alaska, that we make sure that we maintain the high standards for safety work conditions for our people, as well as making sure that we as a state continue to benefit and thrive. And I want to make sure that any kind of policies or legislation that we put into place, make sure that we all benefit, businesses and individuals.
Daisha Eaton, your next question.
This is a question for Ms. Scannell. The Anchorage School District is burdened with meeting the educational needs of an increasingly diverse student population. What, if anything, can the state do to support the district?
Oh, well, the state can do many things. One of the things that I've constantly been championing was the fact that Florida actually discovered that we can 90% of all high school dropouts were illiterate at third grade. And I would like to have in place a system that we can check to make sure that we have literacy for children leaving third grade and going into fourth. That way we can help decrease the amount of people that are dropping out of our high schools, because we have some of the highest dropout rates in the nation. And I don't think that's right, and we're doing ourselves a disservice for Alaska's future.
Mia Costello, 30 seconds on what you heard.
Thank you. Actually, I'm missing volunteering in my son's classroom to attend this debate, so I really do care about what's going on in our classrooms as a former classroom teacher and someone who's worked with students who've dropped out. I think there's several things that the state can do. One, I think we can encourage vocational education opportunities. Not every student goes to college, and we need to engage students in the classroom so that they'll stay in school and enjoy the time that they're there learning. I also think that the state can make headway on keeping districts, holding them to the accountability that we've put in place, asking them to put more dollars in the classroom and less in the administration. Thank you.
Okay, and back to Grace Jang.
This question is from Mrs. Costello. You say you've been a victim of crime, so this is a two-part question. Can you explain that, and B, how has it shaped you as a lawmaker?
Yes, thank you for the question. While I was living in Juneau, I actually had my identity stolen, and my husband and I worked very closely with the police department and the FBI, and we were able to actually find the perpetrator. And so I feel that that experience is something, along with all my other experience that I bring to the legislature. I think that having lived in Alaska for 44 years, that I bring a whole array of experience that I try to put to use day to day as a legislator.
Michelle Scannell, 30 seconds.
Well, I think victims of crime is horrible, but unfortunately, Alaska, we rank one of the highest in the nation for sexual assault and domestic violence. And I want to make sure that when we talk about making sure victims have a safe place to go to, that we fully fund the shelters, which are the first line of defense for the women and children of our state, ready to leave our abusive situations. But in 2011, under my opponent's guise, grandmother's house in Fairbanks was closed, and this
We're going to have to leave it right there. Now the candidates have an opportunity to question one another. Ms. Costello, you will ask the first question.
Okay.
She'll have 45 seconds to respond, and you'll have 15 seconds to comment on what you hear.
Great, thank you. Ms. Scannell, I have focused a lot on economic development and job growth in Alaska, and my question for you is, your campaign has spent about 40% of your dollars for out-of-state business, with signs and consultants that do not live in Alaska. So I was just hoping you could explain to the viewers and voters why you chose to give your business to outside vendors.
Well, you say 40%, but the amount of money that my campaign has raised is very little. So 40% sounds like a fantastically large number, but it's actually small. I only bought 250 signs, and those were from a union graphic design shop that was located in Texas. Unfortunately, Alaska does not have a union graphic shop that could do the signs that I was needing. So instead of going to a source that doesn't promote democracy in the workforce, I went and found one that does.
Yeah, Costello.
Thank you. As a legislator, I've worked diligently on expanding economic opportunities for Alaska, and if elected, I look forward to pursuing additional opportunities to grow our economy.
Michelle Scannell, your question.
The vast majority of our state's revenue comes from the oil industry. Oil companies have posted record profits in recent years, and 2012 saw a development boom in Alaska's Beaufort Sea. Why, when Alaska faces a looming fiscal cliff, would you give our money away to big oil?
Well, Alaska has two economic policies, essentially are encouraging exploration and then encouraging development. And so what we've done as a legislature, we've done a wonderful job encouraging that exploration. We've provided incentives for Cook Inlet for almost all areas of the state. When it comes time for those companies to produce the oil, however, we have burdened them with some of the highest effective tax rates in the country. And what we are seeing is a lack of production on the North Slope. My goal is to look long-term for Alaska. I think throughput in the pipeline is how we remain a productive society, and I will vote for more throughput in our pipeline.
Ms. Scannell, 15 seconds.
The truth is, my opponent voted for HB 110, which amounted to $20 billion revenue giveaway for the oil companies to spend free and clear overseas. My opponent voted yes to the two most bloated budgets in our state's history. My opponent's fiscal irresponsibility threatens Alaska's economic future.
We have to go to your second question, and this is again from Ms. Costello.